They tell a story about a lady who comes into the pharmacy. And she asked the pharmacist for prescription cyanide.
Oy vey.
She says, what do you need cyanide for?
Bye bye husband.
Just give you a prescription.
She says, I need it for my husband.
Stealing her lines.
You were close.
So what did your husband need cyanide? She said, I want to kill him.
זה לכבוד האוניברסיטי?
She's truthful.
I said, are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? I'm going to go to prison if I give you cyanide to kill your husband. She says, 1 second. She reaches into her purse and takes out a picture of her husband with the pharmacist's wife. And he says,
You're the one that killed
I didn't
him.
know that you brought a prescription.
That's good. That's very good.
Today is my wedding anniversary.
Happy.
In the non-Jewish calendar. And it's also Dahlia's wedding anniversary. How do I know it's my anniversary? Because Dahlia reminds me every year that it's my anniversary.
Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful.
Mazal tov to the both of us. But
Absolutely.
I believe that one of the major differences between the way Chazal, our rabbis, looked at marriage and the way we look at marriage through a Western Hollywood feeling is when you're planning for something so beautiful like a marriage, you must also take into consideration the worst things that will ever happen.
The
You
worst
see,
things
the
that-
worst things that will ever happen.
Okay.
Cheating, like in the story of the cyanide, is don't hold me to a word that I'm. It's a normal thing. What I mean by normal, it happens all the time, everywhere, in every kind of place, in every kind of community, in every kind of relationship, in every race and ethnicity and religious background. And if we don't plan for marriage knowing that this is something that might happen or how to avoid Chas v'Shalom making such a thing happen, we're fooling ourselves. We're an ostrich sticking our head in the ground. When our rabbis plan a wedding, you know, when I sit there at the wedding and I'm sending a ketubah and everyone's taking pictures, oh, we're filling the bride's name, the groom's name. Everyone's so excited, it's a holy document, they're kissing it, putting it on the wall, I don't know, they decorate it, fancy leather, parchment, who knows what. The whole ketubah is a divorce contract. The ketubah does not consummate a marriage as much as it is there to end the marriage when it needs to be over. There's nothing in the ketubah that is holy per se. It's not there's no religious side to this. Our rabbis were very concerned that a man would get married and then he would kick his wife to the curb whenever he decided and walk away. And therefore they instituted a ketubah which says you can't just throw away your wife whenever you feel like it. If you do so, there will be severe penalties. There will be financial penalties. You have to take care of your wife and your children. This is the original forms of alimony, child support. And they wanted to make sure that a person would understand that when you're getting yourself into a marriage, it's not only when it's good. It's also when it's bad that you have responsibility. And the only time that you could plan for what are you going to do when it turns sour, you can't plan that. Once everyone's fighting at the end, there's no one civil to talk to. There's nobody home. There's nobody who can say, you know what, I gave 20 years of my life, I still owe this person someone, they really were a big deal. And no one's going to tell you that in a divorce proceeding. And if they will, very far and few in between. There are, I've seen mentioned that get divorced. I've seen people that have managed to be civil to each other. But our rabbi said that at the wedding day you must make the plan because right now you love each other. And right now you have to deal with how will this end the same way you deal with, the same time you deal with when it begins. And it's not the normal way we do things. Normally we try to happily ever after, or let's sail into the sunset. That's true. But you have to also know that there are problems that exist in the world that have to be taken care of. Yesterday, Chief Rabbi Lau, who was here in San Diego,
Yes.
he issued a statement. I'm not a student of Chief Rabbi Lau, and I didn't study by him ever, but I've admired some of the things that he's done in the last years.
The old one?
No, the young one,
young
actually.
one.
Believe it or not.
Son.
Son.
The old one, the father.
No, the young one.
Really, from Modin.
What?
The one
Benjamin?
was-
Benjamin? No, I don't
No,
know.
that's a nephew.
No,
The
no.
one who was here in San Diego,
What's his name?
the Rabbi David.
He's too young to have married you.
No,
So
not me,
yeah.
not me. I mean my children, two
Oh.
children.
It could be, yeah, it could be.
It could
author?
be.
Yes.
Married Doran and Karen
Really?
in
Oh,
Israel.
Okay,
Yeah.
look at that.
He's the
שכחתי את השם.
author? Is he an author?
That's his.
No, that's
his
the father.
cousin and his father.
The father is the
I see.
author. That's why I asked.
The
because I
old
read
Chief
his
Rabbi
book.
Lau who survived the Holocaust.
Yeah,
and wrote
that's
it.
him.
Yes.
That's I thought.
The one that was in Yaffa.
Yeah, I have an
Yes.
autobiography of
It
his.
is a
Incredible
fantastic
book.
book.
They translated
Yeah.
it to English.
Yeah, it's
Called-
very good one.
In Hebrew, al tishlach yadcha lenar, do not
Yeah.
raise your hand against the child, but in English it's called
It's
out
called-
of the depths.
It's quotation
I strongly
from,
suggest reading it. It's his father's memoirs of his life from surviving the Holocaust
It's
to
amazing.
being an orphan in Israel, poor as anything, and becoming perhaps the most famous chief rabbi Israel ever had.
And smart one.
Have you ever heard of Rabbi, one of the Lau's book, You Are Not Prepared? It's about going into the high holidays.
Probably that's Rabbi Benny Lau. There's a Rabbi Dr. Benny Lau who's a nephew of this family, and he's a very, very prolific author.
Uh-huh.
I have some of his books in my library,
Okay.
in English and in Hebrew.
So,
There has been in the last 2 months a dozen arrests of ultra-Orthodox Jewish couples, families, therapists, teachers, principals, chief rabbis, I don't know, all kinds of people for all sorts of sexual abuse. In the last, it's been like an epidemic. 2 months in Israel has been off the charts. I cannot tell, if anyone who's in the Israeli news has heard of at least 10 of these stories. I guess it reaches a point where the chief rabbi has to make some kind of statement. Some might say his statement was too soft, some say his statement was too hard, whatever. You know, everyone who's going to criticize will find where to criticize. His statement was that this old Jewish idea of sticking your head in the sand, like an ostrich, doesn't solve any problems. It doesn't help anything. He said, you think you're going to sweep things under the rugs until you have a mountain underneath the rug, and then you think, oh, I'm going to walk. You can't. He says, we're doing ourselves a disservice by pretending that the problems that plague the rest of the world don't plague our communities. So they do. And the fact that we're not willing to admit that is the reason why they still go on. It's the reason why these things still happen. And I thought it was he probably burned a lot of bridges yesterday when he put out this letter. But it's a very important thing to say. We have problems like everyone else has problems.
where was he speaking?
It's a letter. You could go onto Facebook. He has a Facebook page and the letter is published on there. You go to an Israeli news channel, you'll find it too. Yeah, it's a famous letter he put out. Yes, just yesterday afternoon.
By Rabbi Lau?
Rabbi David Lau, yeah.
Okay.
We also have in the TV, in the Israeli TV, they have every Shabbat. It used to be every Friday. He had a drasha.
Very okay.
זה היה מאוד מעניין.
Very good. So, he's also brought a number of reforms to certain rabbinic procedure that was done in Israel. A few good things. Lately, the chief rabbi has been fighting a war with American Jewry, and I'm not involved in that. I'm just saying what's good when I find it. When we deal with marriage, we're talking about relationships. If we don't know what can go wrong, we will never understand how good it can be. It sounds ironic, but I'm telling you that our rabbis taught us that you must focus on all the things that could go wrong before you focus on all the things that could go right. Because you have to be prepared. You can't go into a relationship with your head in the sand. You can't think everything is always going to be blissful. There's a famous rabbi once said, marriage is like riding a bicycle. If it's going smooth and it's easy all the time, you're probably going downhill. You struggle, people struggle, but part of that struggle is figuring out our relationship, figuring out where are we, who are we, what are we, and it doesn't end. It's not like you get married for a certain amount of years, now smooth sailing
That's the marriage. That all the time it's interesting, even with the fight and everything.
Very
we
good,
still
very good.
survive. And I want to add just a little thing. A friend of mine once told me, as we got married 40 years ago, that marriage, it's like two people, like two stones in the river, that they keep on, with the water, keep on, eventually,
They
the
become
water-
smooth.
and it's amazing. Just think about it, that your life always like water, and water it's Torah and everything, all the good things, and eventually you rest together. It's nice.
But this is important, and I believe, in Judaism, you won't find books, classic Jewish books, that deal with the word failure. This modern word, kishalon. Failure doesn't exist in Judaism. It's not a term. Our rabbis never discussed failure, because we didn't believe in this concept of failure. What does it mean, fail? You failed, it means you're trying to do something and it didn't work out the first time, so try again. If it's cold for anybody, close the window. A second time or a third time, or failure is part of a journey, it's part of a process. Life is a journey. On Tuesday we'll be talking about this, yes.
Therefore, our relationship with Hashem is very appropriate because it's just like a marriage.
Very good.
We go up, or we go down.
What does King David say about our relationship with Hashem? He says, Yismach lev mivakshei Adonai. Those who are searching for Hashem will always be happy. Not those who found Him, If you think you found Hashem, if you think you figured out your relationship, you're not really happy. Happiness is the search of today I don't believe in you as much as I believed in you yesterday, but tomorrow I'm going to believe in you 10 times as much. It's a journey, it's a relationship, it's a struggle. David HaMelech already spelled this out when he tells you, don't fool yourself by thinking that it's always going to be the same. It's a struggle. You'll fall, you'll get up, you'll fall, you get up. And in fact, if you look at the biblical difference between an evil person and a righteous person, it's not that an evil person does bad things and a righteous person does good things. It's not the biblical definition of evil and righteous. It says, En tzadik ba'aretz asher ya'aseh tov v'lo yicheta. David HaMelech writes in Tehillim, there is no righteous person on this earth that does good and never does bad. It doesn't exist. If you think you found that person, you're fooling yourself. Everybody does something wrong. So what's the difference between a righteous person and an evil person?
He does more good things than bad things.
Oh, very good. That's the Rambam's definition. The Rambam said is the majority of actions. So you're right. Obviously, you have to be majority good to be considered good, and majority bad because every evil person, Hitler in Yamach Shemov was an animal rights activist. I'm not going to give him the time of day as a good person because being an animal rights activist is a good positive value, but not when you're Hitler. It doesn't help you. You understand? So it obviously has to be more good than bad. That's a very smart. That's the Rambam's definition.
Also to acknowledge it, and then you fight to fix it.
Okay, the Kotzker Rebbe says exactly that. The Kotzker Rebbe says Hashem prefers evil people who are aware that they are evil much more than he prefers righteous people that think they're always righteous. He said because Hashem didn't ask you to be righteous, he asked you to be genuine. That's what the Kotzker Rebbe said. My first date with my wife, she taught me that saying. It was Kotzker Rebbe. He's a famous Hasidic Rebbe who was a radical in his times, but some of his teachings are very relevant today.
Say it again.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I have to remember, he prefers an evil person who is aware, acknowledges that they're evil, than a righteous person who always thinks they're righteous and will not acknowledge that they're evil. Because Hashem wants you to be genuine, not righteous.
So take responsibility for what you do.
Yeah, be honest. I own it. I'm not lying. I'm not going to come up with an excuse now. I did something wrong. Okay, that's part of life. The Torah's answer about the difference between an evil person and a righteous person, Sheva yipol tzadik v'kam. It says that a righteous person will fall 7 times. And the books of Kabbalah talk about why the number 7. I'm not dealing with this today. A righteous person falls 7 times, v'kam, but he gets back up again. The only difference between evil and righteous, the evil person falls and says, you know what? I already did something wrong. I already hurt somebody, so I'm just going to become an evil person. Because I'm in the rut anyways. So why get out? I can never get out. I can never erase my past. So I'm going to stay here. And they become progressively more evil. The righteous person says, no, so I fell in the mud. I got my clothes dirty. I'm going to get up again. I'm going to wash my clothes. That's what there's a washing machine for. That's why I'm going to cleanse my life. I'm going to go back. But the difference is, are you willing to get back up again? There's no such thing as a righteous person who doesn't fall. But the righteous person, Shlomo Kabbalah used to say, Shlomo used to say, Ani nofel 5 dakot, v'kam. Fall for 5 minutes. Something bad happens to you, cry, sit down, 5 minutes, be in the gutter, but then you have to get up again. You cannot stay there, because if you stay in that place, it's very damaging, it's very dangerous. And so I know last week I was reading a lot about advice for rabbis and counseling people. Today, we're finishing up this chapter, but it's on marriage. The things that a person has to know could go wrong. It's not everything, it's not a complete list, but a number of things that could go wrong in a marriage that we have to be aware of. And when we're aware of them and why they happen and how they happen, we can go on to the next page, which is all about the goodness, the beauty, the positive side of marriage and the good things that we need to know, which is what we started off with a few weeks back. If anybody wants a packet in Hebrew, I have some here. You take 2 pages and pass it around. If you don't want, you can just listen. Anybody else want a packet in Hebrew?
I have it.
Oh, it's in Hebrew?
It's in Hebrew, but it's okay. I'm going to be translating it to English. Anybody want one? Klal Gadol. This is a big rule. La'asiyat shalom ben ish lishto, in order to bring peace between a husband and wife. Hu lishma, lachkor, v'lidrosh. It's to listen, to do your research, to ask the right questions. K'dei ladat nachon mahu ikar sichsucham u'ma meni'a otam lahafer shalom bayit. He says you have to get to the bottom of the matter. What are you really fighting about? People will tell you, I'm fighting about this, I'm fighting about that, last week they told me this. That's not really what's bothering you. This didn't start last week. This didn't start when he wouldn't take out the garbage. This didn't start when they forgot your anniversary. Something deeper is bothering you. And only a superficial person will get stuck in the superficial details of the story. You must dig a layer back and see what is the root. What is the root of this problem? You can't deal with only the symptoms. You have to deal with the real problem. Sheyesh marbim dvarim. There are people who like to tell you a lot of things. U'ma'alimim biyod'im or belo yod'im et ikar siftucham. And there are people who either maliciously or subconsciously, they don't even realize they're doing it. They're hiding from you their real struggle, what they're really fighting about. V'achacham, so it's the wise person, the counselor, the rabbi's job. Ya'amik cheker להבין ולגלות את האמת כדי לדעת כיצד להשלים ביניהם. You have to really dig deep and to figure out what is the problem. I think in life this is a big problem. The problem is that we struggle with things and they keep coming back to us. You know, Albert Einstein once said, the definition of insanity is trying to do the same thing twice, expecting different results. It didn't work last time, so what makes you think it's going to work this time? And then you try it again. Nothing changed. You're dealing with symptoms and you're not dealing with the actual problem. There's a famous poem, I don't remember who wrote it, a non-Jewish poet, who wrote a poem about, it's called The Fence and the Ambulance. There were two villages. One was on the top of a cliff, and one was in the valley, down below. And they had a big fight. They had tourists that would come see the view. And they would always fall off the cliff. And so the guys at the bottom said, you know, every time someone falls out, we have to bring an ambulance. Why don't you just put a fence up there? Make sure people don't fall down. He said, why should we waste our village resources to build a fence? You just keep an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. And they were fighting for a long time, an ambulance or a fence, an ambulance or a fence. In our life, we do the same thing. Do you wait for the fire to start before you call the fire truck? Or do you just make sure there are things that are not going to go on flames? Are you putting fences in the right places? Or are we constantly calling an ambulance for things that we could solve had we just gone back one step before the problem? In our life, we do this all the time. Everyone.
That's a nice story.
And it's an important. If you could probably Google it and find the original poem. It's very cute, but there's a deep message. Claire, do you want to come to the table? We can all scoot down and.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm not interrupting.
It's not interrupting.
That's fine.
Vida, and you have to know something. Sichsuch b'mishpacha. Fighting inside of a relationship. Any conflict. Or afilu alimut b'mamitzah. Even violence and abuse inside of a relationship. Nimtza b'chol migvan ha'mishpachot. It's found in all types of families. Ve'en shum chiluk, and there's no difference in edah, what kind of ethnicity they are. Haskala, what education they have. Ma'amad, which financial status or social status they have. Dat, which religion they're a part of. Ba'kol, in all of the relationships, in all of the backgrounds. Yichol yot sichsuch alimut. There can be violence or any kind of conflict. And it says, therefore, the rabbi must believe that when someone comes and tells you, I'm in a situation where it's dangerous for me, you can't say, oh, he's a religious guy, or a very educated PhD. It doesn't help. There's no place in the world where you could tell me, because somebody reached a certain social status, or religious status, or financial status, or an educational level, no one is spared from these plagues that plague the world, and you have to be aware of them. We sometimes say, I can't believe it. I can't believe that person did. Believe it. Believe it, because it happens all the time. All the time. When we say that it's normal, perhaps I should use a better word. When we say that it's regular, it doesn't mean that it's normal. It doesn't mean it's okay. What we're trying to say is just be aware that this problem exists. If you think this problem doesn't exist, I was in yeshiva, and I once approached the rabbis about there's a problem in the yeshiva. I said, we don't believe this problem exists. I said, believe it, I'm telling you, I'm a student here, I'm not trying to snitch, but there's a problem here. I said, you keep giving speeches about how much more Torah you should learn, how much longer you should pray. I said, the guys are not struggling in this world with how much Torah they're going to study. There are other struggles that teenage guys are struggling with, and you're not addressing those issues. And I realized that there's a whole world of people that just don't want to believe. You know, when we were in yeshiva, the Rosh Yeshiva that I taught for, I believe is something I could share publicly. I once taught, not in the yeshiva that I taught in. I was teaching a group of 19-year-old boys from modern Orthodox Jewish backgrounds, from New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. about 150 guys in a room. How many of you have used drugs before? 2 boys didn't raise their hands. 2.
They were honest. Whoa.
Oh no, because it's a very open environment that I was teaching. What am I going to do? Am I going to report you to someone? Who still uses drugs? About half the kids raise their hands.
Wow. 19 years old?
19. In this country, they say the percentage of people who have never abused any kind of drug is about 2% of high schoolers in this country.
Wow.
And even if I'm off, even if it's just 50%, it's a much bigger problem than we think it is. And so this Rosh Yeshiva where I taught, his feeling was, listen, these are not bad kids. The kids are coming to Israel to study for the year. And this is perhaps the last chance they're going to have before they grow out of being high schoolers and becoming independent college adults, that we might be able to help them. Not get them in trouble, but help them. And he believed that it should be mandatory drug testing to get into these gap year programs in Israel. Not to expel guys, but to know you can come to this yeshiva on condition that you come to our drug counseling also. And out there, the yeshiva that I worked in had 3 different kinds of therapists, psychologists that worked in tandem with the yeshiva. If there was a problem and a guy came clean to the yeshiva about his problem, whatever it was, alcohol, whatever it was, if we didn't catch him, but he came to say, I have a problem, I want to work it out, the yeshiva helped pay for their therapy. And you know what happened to that program? We're at a summit of yeshivot, and Israel said, why don't we do this? There are kids that want help, they're too embarrassed to ask their parents at home. Next year they're already going to be too deep into college, they're going to be doing things that you don't want them to know. This is the chance. And do you know what the other principals and administrators and Rosh Yeshiva said of the other schools? We don't want to become druggy yeshivas. We don't want this title of we deal with drug addicts, and we're not.
I was going to say it's grew.
No.
So what happened? We said, listen, we'll do it. I said, great, but if you're the only yeshiva that does mandatory drug testing, what do you think they're going to say about your yeshiva? I said, if all of us do it, there won't be a stigma about it anymore. If all of us agree to do this together, nobody was willing to give it the time of day. Because this problem doesn't exist in our community. And I'm sitting here at this table and I'm telling you, I just spoke 150 19-year-olds. 2 of them didn't raise their hands. Which world do you think you're living in? Doesn't make a difference. This problem, we do not have a substance abuse problem in our community.
That makes sense actually. I mean, if they're high, most of the time they study Torah, they don't get it.
Let me tell you, these are not.
They don't get it.
These are not Torah studying youth. These are like young gap year.
Boy, Jenny, didn't he say?
You know, my husband was looking for a yeshiva for my son. He went to Israel, interviewed 5 different yeshivas. The rabbi at one came right out and said, okay, my husband noticed, you know, some had their feet up and they were on their iPhones and doing all kinds of things. And he admitted, well, these kids, many of them are on drugs and they have to get it out of their system. But I think it might be an economics thing too. You know, that some are so subsidized by institutions that they have stigma and can't let it happen.
But then we're choosing any dilemma where you're choosing finance over what should be the truth. And I can't judge. We've all been in such a situation where you have to make a difficult choice. But you have a chance to help. I mean, what is your...
But what would you do if it was your son? And you were... It wouldn't. Because
no, I never wouldn't. I told you. Now everything could happen.
Scoop.
But without the Hashem should put them all on the right path. Of course I'm...
Yeah, you deal with that.
What do you get... I'll tell you. You just asked a good question. I had dinner with my father-in-law 4 weeks ago when I was in New York. My father-in-law was a long-time principal in Borough Park. 50 years he was a principal of a school. And has a big name. It's like an old principal in that community. And so we like to, you know, talk about different problems that in the community. There's a new generation of young Hasidic kids that are coming up. And I don't know if it's good or bad, or I'm just watching from afar. My wife's family is entirely Hasidic, so I just watch. It's like a study in Hasidic culture. There's a young generation that is not so religious, really. They'll still wear the fur hats and the coats on Shabbat, but during the week they're in the most stylish polo shirts and jeans, and they're traveling to Cancun, and they're not so
in the box.
Not in the box. some might not even classify them as really Orthodox. They don't necessarily live Torah observant lifestyles, but they're part of the Torah observant community. One such, and you have to know, they still get married when they're 19 or 20, but they're not marrying anymore people their parents set them up with. They're marrying girls they already met at restaurants or bars or wherever else, but they'll still do the whole traditional wedding. It's a very interesting, like a subculture that exists inside of the Hasidic world, that the Hasidic world almost doesn't want to admit is happening, but the numbers are too big to keep hiding them.
They're gonna change.
So I have many nieces and nephews that are in similar, what are they telling you? They're very genuine people. They're being genuine. I don't think they're bad. And then they're just saying, this is who I am, this is what I'm willing to take from the community, and this I don't have time for it, I don't have patience for it, I don't believe in. The problem is that many such youth end up in a situation where their families disown them. We had a guy, I was in Las Vegas for 2 nights, and I stayed in a hotel. In the lobby of the hotel I saw a young Hasidic guy, long peot. He didn't have the heart yet to cut off his side crust. They still had that. Give it a few months. And I approached him, hey, how are you? Where are you from? So we spoke for a few minutes. He's part of a trade show that's traveling to Las Vegas. Okay. He called me up a week before Pesach last year.
I remember this.
Yeah. He wanted to come stay by us for Passover.
His family wouldn't.
So I told him, family, you're one of 11 kids. What are you coming to? You don't even know me. I met you for 20 minutes in a hotel. He said his family wouldn't have him for Pesach. They wouldn't have him.
Why? Because
He's too far out of the fold. They're not interested in him influencing the other children in the family.
Bad influence.
I mean, unconditional love is not a thing. You understand this is a problem. That's probably the root of all this problem in the first place. But he didn't come then for Pesach. He went somewhere else, that friend. You can't imagine what it's like to grow up in a community where all you know is that community. You've never stepped outside of your 20-block radius. Even if you're the rebel, you still haven't rebelled so much that you could fit into the world outside of your 20 blocks. And a lot of these kids go through severe stress, emotional stress, and trauma. The things that they deal with, abandonment, all kinds of feelings that people are going through. And it's not like they're marrying a spouse that's solid and has because she's also going through the same problems, because she also ran away from the same world and the same family. The 76th teenager, young adult, 20, in the 20s, the 76th young man just committed suicide 3 weeks ago.
Where?
Since
What do you mean
January of
70s?
2016.
Oh, the 76th
76th person to commit suicide
This year.
In
because
the
of
young
this
Orthodox-
problem in that young community
in New York.
this year.
In New York or all over the world? New York.
Just in that community.
Just in Borough.
Wow.
and he doesn't have red flag. He doesn't.
And
have
how do I
red
know about
flag.
number 76? Because he was my nephew's best friend.
Oh.
And so we heard about it.
And they don't do
So
anything
you
about
don't
it?
hear about them.
So
No
when
red
when
flags, nothing.
So when I brought this up,
Do you remember?
I don't believe it. I don't believe that this number is accurate.
We haven't even talked
it's
about the
close.
incest yet.
What is
Yes,
there?
a
What is
child.
there? What is there to believe? You want me to walk you through the cemetery, show you graves? What do you need in order to believe? But there's a problem. In this clip, 76 people committing suicide in one community, in one neighborhood.
And so young.
In a few months. How far are we from January
Oh my
2016?
God.
8 months.
This is
In
it's not a
1 year.
problem. This is an epidemic, and then people should stop and drop every other project that they're working on and deal with this problem. But it's not being dealt with. This 76th boy clearly pushed the envelope a little bit further, and there have been a few rabbis that have gone on board. But a few rabbis is still an embarrassment to the rabbinic community of that neighborhood. That they're not dealing with this problem.
Is this Hasidic? I'm sorry.
This is a Hasidic, but like the subculture of Hasidic.
Oh.
It's not
Not
Hasidic senior,
Chabad, not
Hasidic
Chabad.
junior, and it's not Chabad. I'm not talking here about Chabad. This is a entirely different kind of Hasidic neighborhood.
It doesn't matter. They are human
That-
beings.
That's
They are
exactly
Jewish.
right.
So where am I coming from? This is the same problem. This is what our parents said. It doesn't make a difference. Religious background, social status, economic status, academic level. In every kind of community, there are human problems. And every group of humans deals with these human problems.
Correct.
And we seem, not we, not myself, not my community, but these problems, some of the Jewish community are still bearing their head in the sand.
Where are the
That was Borough
It
Park.
was Borough
What was
Park.
the name? I don't have my
Hush.
chance.
This boy,
Yes,
this boy's
It
name was
Borough Park.
Yankee Kraus.
Sorry, what was
This
his
boy's
name?
name was Yankee Kraus. You can look it up on the internet.
Yankee Krause.
A lot of articles were written
And
about him.
what reasons, or are they so swept under the table that no one speaks about why they committed suicide?
Because it's not a problem. We don't have
told.
problems.
Like,
Our community
we
is perfect.
read a book about a girl
Yes.
in Borough Park
Yes.
who committed suicide.
Correct.
And she committed suicide because she would go to visit her best friend for Shabbat, for the weekend. And her best friend's 18, 19-year-old brother would come into the bedroom and abuse her.
Is it
Sexually.
There's a
Fiction.
commercial. If you
No,
go to
she hung
True
herself.
story.
Go to
It's a
YouTube.
true story. She hung herself, and no one in the community
Would even accept
would
it.
even
They
accept
just-
that that was a possibility.
That's
I
right.
suggest you go to
Hush.
YouTube and put in this word, Amudim, AMUDIM. It's an organization that deals with sexual abuse in the Jewish community in New York, and they just put out a video called "How Much Can You Sweep Under the Rug," and it's illustrating exactly what Paula just said.
Yeah, we read the book.
Some 96% of domestic and sexual abuse is inside of a family by family members. Stranger danger is not a real thing. I mean, it's a real thing. Strangers can also be dangerous. But 96% of sexual abuse occurs from family members.
Yes.
D-I-M.
But that's for everybody.
AMUDIM.
AMU.
Now, this organization has come under a lot of fire in recent years. Why are you bringing up problems that we don't want to believe exist?
Oh.
Now, here, today's
Okay,
class
right.
is not about the Hasidic community. Today's class is about our community. Marriage, relationships. There are problems, and so long as we pretend that problems don't exist, we will never, ever be able to deal with them.
In this community, is it are the rabbis or the fathers are the ones who are sleeping under the rug, or the mothers also? I mean, mothers tend to be a little bit different emotionally than fathers
Oh,
and
but the
rabbis.
mother
Well,
didn't
if
even believe her.
Yeah,
Do you
if the-
remember?
If the mothers
So-
if the mothers would raise hell, the fathers would do something
Right.
too.
So
It's
I
a
don't know
joint
that you could
thing.
put the blame on any one person or
And not
any one
blaming,
element.
just asking.
It's a very complicated community. Not sophisticated.
Very.
Complicated. Complicated meaning there are people. I went to visit my aunt after she gave birth in Israel. I was young, after bar mitzvah maybe. I went to visit her in the hospital. And next to her was a Hasidic lady from Bnei Brak who came for some kind of treatment that she needed. And one day we came to visit in the morning, she disappeared, this lady. We're gone. I asked her, what happened to your roommate? She said, oh, she went back home, she finished her treatments. And she went back home in the middle of the night, she took a taxi to another place to go. Nobody where she came from could have known that she went to the hospital. Because of what it would do to her family's name, or to her children's marriage prospects, or to her kids getting into school, or whatever. The word is not sophistication, but complication. A lot of things that the next door neighbor struggles with, but will blame you for because they won't admit that they struggle with the same problem.
They have to be perfect.
And everyone has to be perfect, and nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect, and especially not in a world where everybody thinks they're perfect. Most people will not be perfect. And you could be a family of 13 children, and one child decides, hey, you know what, I'm done with this lifestyle, I want to go to college, I want to stop keeping Shabbat, I want to go to the army, whatever it is that this child decides he wants to do, and he'll find that 12 of his siblings will never get married.
Oh, that's sad.
Bad name.
And so what happens? This child, aside from the guilt on them of how could you do this to your family, might actually decide not to take the moves that you expect them to take. They'll end up living some kind of double life, so long as they won't be damaging their family or their siblings. And in Israel we talk a lot about drafting ultra-Orthodox to the army, so on and so forth, and the people who talk about this conversation refuse to have the conversation of, there are many, many, many people in this community that want to go to the Israeli army. But you are not aware of what other factors go into this decision aside from, it's not a world where someone can say, I want to do something, so that's what I'm going to do. It doesn't always work that way. It doesn't always happen that way. Just today, I have a sister-in-law, not from my wife's side, from my brother married her aunt, my brother's wife's aunt, in the 80s, 1981, married a non-Jewish man. Jewish girl from a Jewish Long Island home, married a non-Jewish guy. Still lives with him. She only told her family in 2001 that she was married
3 years later?
20 years later.
Oh, 20 years later.
20 years she pretended she was single.
Wow, how can you?
And they didn't even come from some ultra-Orthodox home. They didn't come from some Hasidic background.
It's a
And
little sick.
I wasn't around in 2001 to know what happened. I didn't know them. We weren't married into that family yet. But I can imagine in 2001, it was just as bad as if she would have told them in 19... No, but
2001.
I didn't know this family. I mean, they weren't
Ah,
part of
yeah,
our family
okay,
at this
yeah.
point. I can imagine that all hell broke loose, and I'm sure there were sisters that didn't talk. I'm sure that all things... I'm not here to tell you that. I'm not justifying your intermarriage. What I'm telling you is it's a classic situation of there are people that hide things and don't... Because the other option of being honest and genuine and the flag that we raise in the world today is not a reality for everybody in the world that you live in today. Not everybody can do that. And you can't necessarily judge a person for making that choice of living a double life because their alternative might not be better for them. Yeah, maybe he wants to get up and have his own life and get married to who he wants to marry and go to college and get a degree and get a job. But and say, oh, these people are good for nothing. But you don't know the pressure this person's under. You don't know what they go through when they come back home, where they don't have a home to come back to. And in a world where you're raised that your home is your whole life and you don't have a home anymore, what kind of person are you? And so in our situation, the number one rule that our parents tells us is when someone comes to tell you they have a problem, and they tell you my husband does this to me or my wife does that to me, you can't say it, I don't believe it. They're too good of a person. There's a halakha. Halakha says, it's in the Torah, Shamoa ben achichem. When someone comes to talk to you about something, you cannot make a decision until you've heard from both sides in the story. It doesn't mean you can't talk to one side, but you cannot make a decision until you speak to both sides. So somebody, for example, I want to tell you a story. Now in San Diego, someone, in the middle of his dreams, in the middle of the night, decided that the rabbi who gives a hechsher on coffee bean, his kosher symbol is no longer valid. Why did he decide such a thing? Because he's a rasha. He's an evil person. That's why he decided such a thing. I'm not embarrassed to tell you this. Some guy woke up in the middle of the night, he wasn't making enough money from his own kosher symbol, so he decided to bash someone else's kosher symbol. And what happened in San Diego the next day? All the people in San Diego decided coffee bean is not kosher anymore. Maybe not you, because you're not part of this discussion.
Coffee bean meaning there's a
kosher
coffee
symbol
place called
right
the
here
coffee
called
bean.
coffee bean and tea leaf.
And that
It
hechsher
has
is
a
not
kosher
okay.
symbol from
Yes.
LA.
Sukul the Caves.
The rabbi who gives the certification to coffee bean, his name is Rabbi Ben Zaken. Rabbi Ben Zaken is an old school Sephardic rabbi from Los Angeles. What do I mean by old school? I mean by old school. He's not from the modern era of Lithuanian Sephardic rabbis. He's from the old school. He reminds me of my rabbis. I didn't know him until a year ago. I knew of him, heard of him. A year ago when we opened up our community, he heard through the grapevine that we didn't have a Torah scroll. And so he calls me up out of the blue and says, if you have somebody in LA, I want to lend you a Torah scroll. The Torah scroll is worth like $35,000. He doesn't know me, never met me before. I sent a friend.
That was
Same
last
week.
summer.
That was
Last
last
summer.
exactly
That
that
was
last
last summer.
summer.
You still have the Torah? You gave
Yes.
that back
We
to
gave
him?
it back to him
That's
because we
what I
didn't
thought
get
you
it from
got a new
earlier.
one. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And he lent us for about 6 months a Torah scroll, and he's going to give us in 2 weeks, he's going to give us 2 more Torah scrolls for this upcoming Rosh Hashanah. And I've met him since then twice. We're not best friends. There's a person who heard there was a problem and decided he's going to do something about it. He had a problem with the tuition crisis in LA. Too many kids couldn't afford the tuition for Jewish school in LA. So he figured he doesn't have enough problems, and he opened up a high school for Jewish kids that costs exactly half of what every other Jewish high school charges in Los Angeles.
Beautiful.
Why? He makes it happen. However, he makes it happen. He hires less teachers, has classes that they do online, some correspondence courses, whatever needs to happen so these kids can afford an education and won't get rejected by every other institution that cares about money more than the children that need that education. It's a person of integrity. A person of integrity. And so you don't want to eat his food anymore? You want to believe the guy who says that his food isn't kosher? Fine, don't eat his food. But you can't make that decision according to Jewish law unless you called him also and heard his side of the story. And the rabbi in the community who gets up, sorry, I've been informed from Los Angeles that this hechsher isn't kosher anymore, is violating a biblical prohibition of Shamoa ben Achichem. When there's a fight between two people, you must hear both sides of the story. What does it mean when someone violates a biblical prohibition? That means that if the rabbi does a wedding for somebody, the wedding is not kosher. And if the rabbi is a witness on a ketubah, the ketubah is invalid. And if this rabbi gives testimony in a rabbinic court, we reject his testimony. That's what it means. And I'm speaking harshly, but I cannot believe that a whole city has believed one person in the middle of the night came up with a dream and decided this person is no longer kosher. What if they did that to your business? What if someone did that to your reputation? You wouldn't at least ask the question? Didn't you hear both sides of the story?
But also the baked goods was also kosher.
Of everything.
Everything in
Everything
the
in the
shop
store.
was kosher.
And it still is. Everything in the store is
Everything
still
in
under
That's
Hashgacha.
right, 100% kosher.
There's a list in there which says exactly what the ingredients are. Like
That's
there,
right.
the lattes have something which is milkig. It's not called Israel, but it says exactly
says.
what
What?
it is. So you can choose
What it is
where-
that,
where
according to
it
your
is.
personal stringency, you would like to eat or not.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Very good.
Yeah. I mean,
So he didn't even explain why he's doing
Oh,
that.
there. So what did I do? The person that came to complain to me, I said, well, let me ask you a question. Why don't you go ask the rabbi who said the kosher symbol is invalid? Go ask him why it's not good. That's a normal thing. So that's a great idea. Let me ask. So he calls up this rabbi. Why is it not good? I can't tell you.
What?
Ooh.
I can't tell you. The official statement is, it's not a good kosher symbol, but I cannot disclose why. If you cannot disclose why should I believe you?
But how did all those people follow it? I don't understand.
Because people in this world are like sheep that
Thank
run in a
you.
flock,
Thank
that,
you.
that don't think for themselves, and
That's
it's not in any
exactly
one
right.
community. People
Well,
just run after whatever the world
it's very
tells them.
hard. If you have a rabbi and the rabbi says, well, actually this texture is not good, and you always follow this rabbi.
If you have a rabbi
Of
who
course.
tells you to eat pig,
Well,
you're gonna listen to him?
It's the same thing.
the rabbi is telling you,
exactly
I'm
the same.
violating a
It should be the
biblical
same thing.
prohibition.
I
The
agree.
biblical prohibition I'm violating is, I did not research both sides of the story.
Right.
It's a biblical
if you
prohibition.
If you go and ask why is it not, and they say no, then of course. But you don't. Not everything that your rabbi says you're gonna question.
Well, that's fair.
You assume-
Judy, can I ask you for a
when
book?
say
On the couch,
something,
there's a
everybody's-
big brown book that says Ein Yaakov. Not the small Ein Yaakov, the
question
big brown
everybody.
one.
Well, fine, but not everybody questions somebody all the
No,
time.
not that one, the other one. There's a big brown one.
everything.
I think that
If it
I
doesn't
think
make sense though, I mean, why would
Exactly.
suddenly
Yes.
a chain, would suddenly be not kosher? Why?
It happens all the time, unfortunately. If you're in the kosher field, it happens all the time that something which has a hechsher is not good anymore, or still has a hechsher, and then you're told, actually, there was a problem with the machinery. If you're in that field, it happens all the time. The
So when
hechsher
it does
doesn't-
happen, don't they explain why it's not kosher suddenly?
Yeah, if you.
So this
Right,
came
for
with
sure.
no
On your
explanation.
Exactly.
Right, no,
It came with no explanation.
I'm,
Now
I'm,
you
not,
understand.
I'm not
Determine from
defending
going
it.
to
I'm
get
just
coffee.
telling
No, I
you.
hear
I mean,
you. I
Starbucks
hear
have a
you.
hechsher?
well,
No, but some of the
Because
things.
I see plenty of black-hatted
Yeah,
rabbis
'cause-
getting coffee
oh.
in
absolutely,
Starbucks.
absolutely.
I want to read you something from the son of the Rambam, the Maimonides son. This letter upset so many people that many considered it a forgery because it bothered them too much. This letter is an introduction to the Talmud by Rabbi Abraham, the son of the Rambam. I give a class twice a week, 20 minutes each night. So if you want to listen, it's on YouTube. There's a whole playlist of Rabbeinu Abraham, the son of the Rambam's classes on ethics and morals, philosophy. It's about 20 minutes of lecture. It's not a long lecture. Now it's on video, so it went from audio to video. I suggest if you want to learn something good, his writings are incredible. He writes the following words, which are obvious, but unfortunately the world doesn't even begin to think about. And he writes, I'll read to you in English. I wrote the translation down once, there's no reason to read it in Hebrew. He says, know that it is your duty to understand that whoever propounds a certain theory or idea,
You either
Hi, Annie.
it's pleasant.
that whoever propounds a certain theory or idea and expects that theory or idea to be accepted merely out of respect for the author without proving its truth and reasonableness. So this person has a theory, they have an idea, they have a halakhic opinion, they have a scientific opinion, they have whatever opinion they have. They say, why should you believe it? Because I said it. Because I said so. Pursues a wrong method, prohibited both by the Torah and human intelligence. It does not make sense to believe in something just because the person who said it is someone worth believing. From the standpoint of intelligence, such a method is worthless, for it would cause one to minimize the importance of those things which, after scrupulous observation and proofs, ought to be believed. When I believe in something just because someone said it, it means that all the other things that are important, that have been proved, that have been studied and researched, and those are true, it takes away the value from those things that are true. When I just believe in something because a person said it.
But it depends who is the person, isn't it?
That's right.
If it's a big rabbi that you know is, the Rambam will say something.
If
and you
Albert
won't explain.
Einstein would say something in science that he didn't research, he just had a thought that popped into his
No,
head.
he
You would believe
question
it?
him. No,
You must
no.
question it, and Albert Einstein would expect you to question it also.
Exactly.
I hope.
Exactly.
If
No, but
that's
you
exactly what she
didn't
means.
question it, you didn't learn, you didn't understand what he said though. You want to understand what he says.
No, but I'm saying about, we're not talking the science. We're talking about a rabbi.
Even
Let's
the
say
rabbi,
there's
I
a big rabbi that we always trust what he says, and he come with something. We won't ask him, explain to me exactly why.
Why not?
Why?
Actually,
No,
yes.
but we don't.
Think about it. It's so interesting. I mean, it's always been kosher.
So
What made it not
Easier to just
kosher?
trust
So what am I telling you? What I'm telling you now
Curiosity.
is this is the problem. You're right, Dahlia. You're right. Dahlia is not saying something new. This is what the world does.
That's right.
The
So
world.
what do you do?
Somebody said it. So,
What, I mean,
and it
And the
almost
same
comes.
thing in the non-film world. If Einstein
Yeah,
would
no, that's
say
why I'm not
something,
talking about the.
you say Einstein, he for sure wouldn't publicly say something unless he knew.
I get that my
This
father
was-
was almost killed in the early 2000s by a doctor. But if my mother hadn't asked the questions and driven him crazy like only my mother knows how to do, yeah, then he wouldn't be around today. My father wouldn't be around today. I wouldn't have had dinner with him yesterday. You know, just because the doctor told you something, you're gonna walk away and believe it.
But the truth is, the majority of people say they do what the doctors do, and it's people like your mother and me that give them a hard time because we question. And then there are people who listen to what the scientist says. Stephen Hawkins can publish something. You can read it in the New York Times tomorrow, and it's acceptable.
So listen to this.
No one questions
If you
it.
have,
No,
if you have,
It's
It's
acceptable
rabbi.
because you know that he always gives
Yeah,
something that
exactly.
he researched.
But
He
this-
knows
but-
more
but-
than anyone else
but-
about
but-
that
but-
subject. So what are you going
then
to
you have
question?
two kinds
So
of.
he now says that what he said was wrong.
Okay, and the same thing with the rabbi. Who knows as much
You
as
have
the
two
rabbi?
kinds of
Right.
doctors.
Exactly.
Two kinds of doctors, and then you have two kinds of rabbis. The doctor that says, okay, you don't understand it, let me explain it to you. Let me open up a book, let me pull up a web page, let me print out an article for you. Let me explain to you, this is why I'm prescribing this medication, there's this problem, this medication comes with those side effects, I know there might be danger, the danger is 73%, the risk is that... That's a doctor who, and there's a doctor who says, what are you, you're not a doctor, you went to medical school. That doctor that speaks
It's
like
dangerous.
that, don't trust him.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Don't trust him.
Of course.
He has ego, an ego that is... He's
So,
right.
it
He
can
went to
kill
medical
you.
school. He's right. You're not a doctor. He's right, but it's my body that I'm worried about. I have a right to ask a question. There's the rabbi that says, you don't understand. Okay, so then I have to explain it to you. Clearly, I'm not doing a good enough job explaining to you what's the truth about this. Or there's rabbis that say, what do you mean? You're a rabbi? You understand anything about Torah? That second kind of rabbi is perhaps the most prevalent rabbi we have around today. And the only reason, listen to me very carefully, the only reason any kind of scholar reacts that way is because he doesn't know. He doesn't know how to prove to you that he's correct because he's really not. He lacks the sophistication, the ability, the intelligence to tell you, let me tell you that this is the reason why. This is the understanding. This is the book where I got this idea from. This is where this theory comes from. Do you know why I wrote my book on the laws of Pesach? It had nothing to do with me wanting to write a book on the laws of Pesach. I received from a rabbi in this town, I didn't finish reading the paragraph, I received from a rabbi in this town a little pamphlet on the laws of Passover. And when I read it, it was the rabbinic version of watching a horror movie. I read each paragraph, and each one got crazier and crazier and crazier, and less intelligent and less intelligent and less intelligent. And so this is what I did. I took a pencil, and I underlined everything that was wrong in this article, and I decided I'm going to speak to this. Ask, where's your source for this? Where's your source for that? No sources. I said, how do you publish something that has no sources? Why should I believe you that you're right? And so I decided, I'm going to write a rebuttal back to this article. And that rebuttal turned into a book. And that book, I'm happy to say, has over 400 sources inside. To a pamphlet that had not one and a half. There's a person, you can't, who are you that I should believe you that this is what I can or cannot do? You have to tell me why it makes sense, or at least where you got this idea from. And this is done in every field, every philosophy, every knowledge, every area of academia. Then it can't be that an hour till I have the... Sorry, I'm not going to explain it to you. You're not qualified to know the answer to this question. So then I'm not going to listen to you, I'm sorry. And especially in a situation where something was considered kosher yesterday, and now you're coming to tell me that it's no longer kosher, meaning you're the one taking something away from me. Let me bring you an interesting example from the Talmud. I decide to go sue. Who am I going to sue? I take Elchanan to court. Elchanan. I take him to court. He's not my kid. He's just another person in the story. I say, Elchanan, that you went to the doctor, and there were no shots, right? No shots. I'm not going to the doctor with shots. He's terrified because he went and they got shots and he doesn't like the doctor.
He heard you talking about doctors.
Yes. So I take him to court. And I say, that shirt is mine. I take one of you to court. Your shirt is mine. I own that shirt. Who has to bring the burden of proof that the shirt belongs to them?
The one that goes to court.
The owner.
So if you're wearing a shirt and I take you to court and the judge says, Janet, prove to me that shirt is yours. Is that judge being fair?
No.
Who bears the burden of proof?
You.
Why?
You're the one that's
She
suing.
possesses it.
Kol hamotzi mechavero, it's a rule in the Talmud, a cardinal rule. Kol hamotzi mechavero, anyone who comes to take something from his friend, alav lehavir raya. It's his responsibility to bear the burden of proof. If I'm telling you your car belongs to me, but you're the one who has the keys, and you're the one who's driving it, and it's sitting in your driveway, chances are it's your car. When I come to take something away, I come to prohibit something, I come to make something not kosher, the burden of proof does not rest on anybody else except for the one who's coming to take it away from everybody else.
Yes.
This is a cardinal rule in Judaism. And someone who does such a thing is violating this rule.
It is in the court also. The plaintiff has to.
Oh, very
prove
good. It could be an American legal rule as well.
Yeah.
Very. So, to finish up Rabbi Nava Rabba, he says that's from the point of view of logic.
Just something. It actually brings us to the beginning when you mentioned about the tzaddik and the rasha. They have a value towards the tzaddik, towards the rasha that admits the truth, versus the tzaddik that says I'm always right.
So listen to this. Ariel brought up a point. In the laws of mezuzah, there are two different kinds of things that fall into the category of the laws of mezuzah. There's a mezuzah that goes on your door, and there's something called in the same place, it's called a ma'akeh. What's a ma'akeh?
A rail?
It's a biblical commandment.
The fence around the top.
Very good. Tell me what the story is.
That you have to, when you build a house, you have to put a fence around it so that nobody can fall out.
A fence around the roof.
The roof.
What?
Right. If
And I don't have a fence on my roof.
If you have a flat roof.
So am I violating a biblical commandment?
No, because you
No.
can't get up
Very
there.
good.
You don't have a ladder
If
going
you go
up
to
there.
Israel and you see it in Israel, most roofs are really the third floor of the house.
That's
Yes.
right.
Because that's
so they
where
have to have
you hang
fence.
laundry, that's where you sit for
Yeah.
barbecues.
Yeah.
The houses are flat on top. You must have a railing on the top of your house. It's a
That's
biblical
right.
commandment.
Oh, yeah.
Why? Why?
So you don't fall off.
So people don't fall. And if someone falls, who is blamed for his murder?
You.
The person who
You
built the
owns
house
the
and did not
house.
put the fence up there.
That's right.
Halav Peretz stretches this prohibition to windows on the second floor, where there are children, and the children could, God forbid, fall out of the windows. There must be some kind of railing or some kind of lock or some kind of protective. And the whole idea is, God forbid, on my property there should not be something that somebody could die from. And if you use your brain, it doesn't just have to do with windows and railings. All kinds of things that are dangerous that a person has to make sure they take care of, or don't have people in your help. In this law, there's a big argument about whether or not you make a blessing. You make a blessing when you put a mezuzah on the
Yes.
door, because it's a religious thing. Do you make a blessing when you put up the fence on your roof, or is it just one of those biblical commandments that you do because it's common sense, but it's not a mitzvah to make a blessing? For
Because not everybody has
70, 80 years, Rabbi Yosef was writing books saying, you do not make a blessing on this makeh. It's just part of the construction of your home. It's not a special mitzvah you make a blessing on. And every rabbi who argued with him said, you're wrong. You do not make a blessing on this. He wrote it on his books. And Rav Peretz for years and years and years saying, no, you must make a blessing. It's a biblical commandment. It's not just a common sense. It's a law from Hashem. You must make a blessing. You must make a blessing. And he would teach a class. He would say, you must make a blessing on this fence. And what Rabbi Yosef says is incorrect. There are proofs that say you must make a blessing. And the people will get riled up. Who are you to say Rabbi Yosef is incorrect? Until I got the last version of one of Rabbi Yosef's books that he published before he passed away, in which Rabbi Yosef writes in the laws of Makeh. My whole life I told people to not make a blessing on the fence. And I found that I'm incorrect. And I take back my opinion. And those people who put a fence on their roof must make a blessing on the market. And when I showed this to Rav Peretz, he was so happy. He said, you see, the greatness of Rav Ovadia was not that he could fight for 70 years that he was right about something, was that even after 70 years of fighting for something, he could admit that he was wrong. He said, I was wrong. Those who argued with me, and I'm taking back my opinion in print. That tells you that someone's an honest person. That someone's they're a person of integrity. They could say, I was wrong. So what? So what if you're wrong? What's going to happen to you if you're wrong?
So what happened to the coffee guy? Did he ever admit he was wrong?
So
Yeah.
I've been sending people to Coffee Bean more often than I ever have, just to show we support this institution.
So what do you do? Because I sent an email to this rabbi. He has a site, and I always ask him questions. And he didn't give me a reason why it was not kosher anymore. So what do you do?
It's a
Because
good.
I go to
It's
the
a.
site all the time.
It's a
How
good cue.
legitimate.
It's a good cue not to ask any more kasher questions.
That's exactly
Well, what
right.
about
I'm
the
sorry to say that.
information on the site?
I can't judge a person.
By the
Well, how do you
way,
know what's
going back to the
accurate?
It's a matter of can I trust this person's judgment? And the answer, unfortunately, is no longer. Can I trust their judgment? I'm writing
It's an
in one of my
expensive site.
in the book that I'm working on now. There's a piece on Rabbi Yosef Masas. Rabbi Yosef Masas, the chief rabbi of Morocco, was in a big fight with Rabbi Shlomo HaKohen, who was one of the elderly Moroccan rabbis. And he had a whole critique on Rabbi Masas's works, and he put out an essay that this man, if he wasn't the son of the old Rabbi Masas, I would say he's a heretic, but because he's the son of righteous people, letters and letters. And I always knew there was this argument. But I never heard back a response from Rabbi Yosef Masas. Passed away in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s. Until I got a book now, about a year ago. I got a book, and in the back it had a little kuntres, a little pamphlet. My response is back to Rabbi Shlomo Cohen. And he says, in the beginning of his pamphlet, he writes, I already tried proving myself to Rabbi Shlomo Cohen. I already sent him numerous letters. But he's blinded by his passion to prove me wrong, that he's not willing to accept the truth. And he says to my dear friend, to the great rabbi, to the leader of this generation, Rabbi Shlomo HaKohen, I will tell you that no longer will the Jewish people be able to trust the authenticity of the thoughts and ideas in your books. Because we have seen that you are no longer a man of truth, but a man of passion, one who decides that he has an agenda and is not willing to reconsider his position. He says, and that saddens me because we've just robbed the Jewish people of a great mind. And I found that to be look how much respect he gave him. But he told him, you have proved that you're not willing to address the issue, but you have a problem, and this problem is one that you're not willing to get over. You can speak about me, all kinds of things too. I don't want to speak Lashon Hara about any one rabbi. But it tells you something about a personality. There are enough honest people in the world of kashrut that you don't have to run after the people who are not.
just to comment on the
Yes.
problem, okay? It's on the ArtScroll series.
Oh yeah.
And it's because I mean I was in Mexico actually, and she had another siddur, and she showed it to me, and it was a Sephardic siddur, and then the ArtScroll siddur, and it was there. So just
Okay.
to comment
Thank you.
about the bracha, because it is there.
Very good. Okay, Baruch Hashem.
I just had a thought about something. We'll relate this to Chabad in a second. But it could be for Satmar or anybody else, where you have a strong Rebbe, and the Rebbe has their downline and their disciples, and everyone just listens to the Rebbe. That makes it a lot easier, because you don't have infighting among the rabbis. Do you know what I'm saying? But it seems like outside of those numbered communities, how many there are, I don't know. In the rest of, let's say, the world of Judaism, you've got individual rabbis out there kind of doing their own thing with their own students and whatnot, and one says one thing, and then you come in and say, wait a minute, the proof shows something else, and then everyone's fighting. But there doesn't seem to be infighting when you have
That's
that
not
one.
true, by the way.
Is that not true? Okay, okay. So
Yeah.
I thought maybe it might be.
Illusions of greatness. They're
Yeah.
illusions.
They still-
Jews, 3 Jews, 5 opinions. That
Okay.
no matter where
All
you
right.
go.
Okay.
I'll
even,
tell you though,
even if they have that one
but
Rebbe
she's
who-
right.
It-
It's hard to be a chassid and think you know better than your Rebbe, because
Happens all the time.
it does happen all the time. But it's the definition of a chassid is one who listens to his Rebbe, and so if he doesn't, then that could be a problem. Can I ask? You can read Hebrew well. On the shelf behind you, there's a book called Ruach Chaim. Could you bring it for me, Judy?
I can bring it.
I just want to say one little thing. When
I think I know where it is. If you go to that bookcase where the red candle's on, I believe it's 4 shelves down. Look 4 shelves down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Should be a small, short brown book that says Ruach Chaim. You see it? Very good.
I found one that says.
That's it.
He knows his stuff and he knows everything is written in his stuff.
It's true.
Has that made time?
That's how you pointed
It's
that.
in the first paragraph.
Yeah.
First paragraph. Who was just telling me something?
I just
Oh,
wanted
you,
to
yeah.
say, when I first came to
Just
Crown
put it down,
Heights,
it's a
one of the
page.
things was that
Amazing.
the Rebbe wanted people to have people for Shabbos, to invite people for Shabbos. And like the people, the Hasidim, with old-time Hasidim, they were not used to just inviting people who they didn't, like these Baal Teshuvas and so on. And when I came there, we were assigned to a family, and I was assigned to one of those families. And they chose me because I was like an okay girl to have an
Yay!
You were approved.
Right? I mean, I was European, so I wasn't on drugs, I wasn't, it was okay. But, and they were very proud that they followed, but there were a lot of other peers of theirs who just couldn't do it. So I'm just saying, and they were doing anything the Rebbe said. I mean, it wasn't, but
Right. They weren't being bad Hasidim. They just were.
No, there were certain things which were just too hard for them to do. I mean, it's not like yes, there's maybe more of an adherence, but even in the Rabbeim also in Crown Heights, there were definitely, if you talk to this one, you will get this one, if you talk to this, because they interpreted things, even though they were both, or all 3 of them Hasidim of the Rebbe, that didn't mean that they didn't different psak and different
Very
opinions.
good. Okay, so this is a normal. It's a normal human condition, which may look like this problem has been solved in other places, but it's not necessarily true. And I want to read you something from the opposite of the Hasidic world. I have 5 minutes on my clock. Let me read you 2 things. I want to finish the last sentence of Rabbeinu Avram ben Rambam and read you something here because it will answer our questions, and then that's how we're good today. He said, there's no difference between him who accepts an idea without any evidence as to its integrity and him who believes a person's statement simply because he respects the latter and therefore contends that his idea is undoubtedly true since it emanates from a great man. For all this gives no evidence as to the merits of the subject in question and is therefore forbidden. Yeah, we admit he's a great rabbi. That's a great doctor. We didn't take it away from him. Just not every great rabbi, everything he says is so great. That's all we're saying. The greatness of a person didn't answer the question on the subject. We didn't deal with the subject. We're dealing with the person. And you have to know how to separate those 2 things. The Mishnah tells us in Pirkei Avot, in the first chapter, the 4th Mishnah, my wife just signed for me, Yosef ben Yoezer, Rabbi Yosef, the son of Yoezer, Ish Tzredah, he was a man from a place called Tzredah. V'Yosef ben Yochanan, Ish Yerushalayim, and Yosef, the son of Yochanan from Yerushalayim. When people say the name Yossi, they read the Yossi. Yossi is like an Israeli name. Okay? Yosef is the way that it was in, like Jose, It's the way it was written in Aramaic. Kiblu mihem. Yosef ben Yoezer, Ish Tzredah, Omer, Yosef, the son of Yoezer, says, Yihi betcha bedvad chachamim. Your house should be a home that is open to Torah scholars. The Torah scholars should come to your home, should be part of your home. It's an important thing. You learn a lot of things from having a Torah scholar in your home. And then if you're not able to have a Torah scholar in your home, the Lubavitcher Rebbe suggested that there's a way to kind of do this by bringing a lot of Jewish books in your home. That way a lot of Torah scholars live in your home, even though they're not actually there, but their writings are there.
Do you have to read the books?
Probably.
You
at the
should.
top. So I have guests over. Do I have to talk to them? והווי מתאבק בעפר רגליהם, and you should roll over in the dust of their feet. Give them a lot of respect. והווי שותה בצמא את דבריהם, and you should drink in their words when like a very thirsty person. There was a rabbi called the Vilna Gaon, Rabbi Eliyahu Kramer of Vilna,
Yes.
known to be a famous opponent of the Hasidic movement, but I'm sorry to tell you that wasn't who he was. He was an opponent of the Hasidic movement, but he was not defined by what he opposed. He was also a philosopher, a thinker, a Kabbalist, an author in his own right. He was a Torah scholar in his own right. He had a student called Rabbi Chaim of Volozhin. Rabbi Chaim of Volozhin was the prime disciple of the Vilna Gaon. And he has a commentary on this Mishnah, which I always found to be very touching. And he says, you read this Mishnah, you should roll over in the dust of their feet. That's kind of, I should roll over and stuff. What is it trying to, the word mitabek. Mitabek in Hebrew comes from the same word. What's the root of mitabek? What are the?
No.
Ma'avak. Ma'avak. Fighting. Vayvater Yaakov levado. Yaakov was left alone at night. Remember that? V'yavek ish imo, and a man appeared to him and started fighting with him. That angel. Ad alot hashachar, until the rise of dawn. Says Rabbi Chaim of Volozhin, our rabbis didn't use the word mitabek for nothing. The word means to fight. So let's explain. It means to fight at the dust of their feet. And he explains, Huzharnu gamken, ואסור לו לתלמיד לקבל דברי רבו. It's forbidden for a student to accept his rabbi's teachings כשיש לו קושיות עליהם, so long as he has questions about them. It is forbidden for a student to accept the words of his teacher if he struggles with it. ולפעמים יהיה האמת עם התלמיד. He says, and sometimes the student is right, the truth is with the student, not with the rabbi. So how could that be? וכמו שעץ קטן מדליק את הגדול. Like a small twig, a match can light a big log on fire. Sometimes it's the match that has the fire, not always the log is correct. And that's that's what a rabbi said, you should have Torah scholars in your home. You should fight with them. What does it mean? Milshon v'yavek ishimo, that a man was fighting with him. It's like fighting in a war. You're going to war against your rabbi. Ki milchemet mitzvahi. This is a war that you're commanded to fight, to argue, struggle, question. וכן אנחנו נגד רבותינו הקדושים אשר בארץ ונשמתם בשמי מרום וחברים מפורסמים וספריהם איתנו. He says the great rabbis even from the generations before us that only their books are left with us. הוזהרנו גם כן. We're also commanded about them, not just the rabbi that's in front of you. ונתן לנו רשות, Hashem gave us permission להתאבק, to argue, וללחום, and to fight בדבריהם against their words. And to answer the questions that we have against them. We have a commandment not to be biased towards any person. Meaning, don't accept any one person's words. Rak lehov ha'emet. You have an obligation to love only truth.
So does that justify actually the farm opinion for 3 Jews?
Perhaps in our nature,
To fight.
but my last sentence.
To get the truth.
וזה אך בתנאי, what's the condition to fighting with our teachers? בעפר רגליהם. At the dust of their feet. What's that לומר? It's trying to tell you, בענווה, with humility, והכנעה, with respect, with submission, ולדון לפניהם בקרקע. I'm not arguing with you from here. I'm arguing with you as a student argues with his teacher. Be respectful. But don't dare think that you have to give up your judgment, your intellect, your knowledge because of what someone else says. Question, but from a place of respect. And so this does justify, perhaps on a spiritual level. Our rabbis tell us, Ma'aseh avot siman lebanim, that the parents' struggles are the same struggles a child will have. And if you look at the story here of Yaakov, who's fighting in the dawn with an angel, Rashi says, well, the Torah says, what does he ask? What does he ask the angel? Do you remember this part of the Chumash?
כן.
Who are you? What is your name? What is your name? And what does the angel tell him?
פלאי, או שכחתי את
difference does it
הקווטיישן.
make?
The angel says, what are you asking questions for? What difference does it make what my name is? Says Rashi. Rashi writes there, who is this angel? Saro shel Esav. This angel, every nation has an angel in heaven that protects that nation. This is the angel of the nation of Esav. Esav is the world that we theologically translate over to be Christians. Like Ishmael are the Muslims, Esav are the Christians. And I once heard from a great rabbi who said that it's in the DNA of the Christian religion not to question faith. To believe, to accept. Faith. Have faith. A lot of faith. Allah, you'll talk about, don't ask questions. The church has never been happy with questions being asked against them. There's a famous letter by a rabbi who wrote to the Vatican all the contradictions in the New Testament. And after the first time he sent it, they didn't write him back a letter. And the second time, the third time, one of the great bishops there wrote him back a letter at order of the Pope. I have this book in my library, so if you want to read the letter, you can. And the bishop said, you're right. All these contradictions, according to the New Testament, Jesus died in 3 different places. According to the New Testament, he had 2 different family trees from different names. According to the New Testament, all kinds of stories. But the sentence in there was, but the believing Christian will believe anyways. What does that mean? I will turn off my brain and stop asking questions. And it is perhaps in our DNA, we're the children of Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov, we ask, what is your name? And what does the angel say? What difference does it make? I'm from Esav. Why are you asking so many questions? Just believe a little bit. Have a little bit of faith. It is not in our religion. It is not in our religion. But we have to know when we question. We sing a song on Shabbat morning. Enke, there's no one like our God. There's no one like our man. No one like our Lord. And then the next question we ask, who is like our God? Who is like our... You're allowed to question. You're allowed to ask who and what and when and why. But first it has to come, I believe in Hashem. I'm asking questions though. I'm not... My questioning my rabbi is not coming from a place of I think he's an idiot. I want to know more. And I think that if he's right, he has what to share with me. Then if he doesn't have what to share with me, then maybe it's not the right person I should be learning from. And so B'ezrat Hashem, when it comes to marriage, the whole point of today's class was you cannot believe any one side in a relationship that they're purely righteous, that they're always right, that they're never at fault with them, because there says on Kehillat, there's no one person who is right. And it could be you have a very good person, a very hardworking man, a very loyal wife, a very honest couple, but they fight the same human fights that everyone else fights. And for you to dismiss that there might be problems in such a relationship that outwardly looks so healthy, that is the first mistake of dealing with relationships, is thinking that people don't have problems, and they do. B'ezrat Hashem, as we take apart this puzzle, we'll discover more and more about these relationships.